Make an informed decision about political issues that affect you. Watch and phone in during Rogers Community TV's exclusive live riding-by-riding coverage of all candidates' debates. London-Fanshawe, Monday, May 31st at 7 p.m. Decision Ontario, only on Rogers.
Just in time. Now I'm ready for Optimus TV Bingo!
Let's get ready to bingo!
After you've made an informed choice and voted, get results you can count on. For live, local, in-depth election night coverage in your riding, tune in Thursday, June 3rd, beginning at 8 p.m. to Decision Ontario on Rogers Community TV. We'll bring you comprehensive, up-to-the-minute, on-screen results, analysis of campaign issues, panel discussions, and on-location reports. For local, live, and interactive election night coverage, watch Decision Ontario, only on Rogers Community TV.
I'm Chris Meloche, your host for Structures, a program that focuses on an appreciation of our urban landscape. See Structures here on Rogers Community Television.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Kool-Aid.
Tune in to Video Underground.
Wednesdays at 10 p.m. on Rogers Community TV.
We love to watch TV. So when I heard all this stuff about how satellite TV is better than cable, I thought, great. Not so great. For instance, additional outlets. With cable TV, they don't cost much at all. With satellite TV and a separate receiver for each set, that could cost a bundle. And get this, we're responsible for service and installation. Our cable company has been providing guaranteed service for years. Satellite TV, no thanks. We'll keep our cable.
Cable TV, the best value in home entertainment.
This is Rogers Community Television, London.
Created $6 billion in government revenue. This government revenue went to health care, to education. In our new plan, it is an aggressive one, and it will continue to reduce taxes by 20% on your personal income taxes and 20% on property taxes. This will create 825,000 new jobs and more government revenue so that we can spend 20% more on health care. This will meet our needs of our aging population and a quality education system for the future. We've also hired 1,000 new police officers in the province of Ontario, and community safety is of vital importance. The thing that's very important is that we need a vibrant economy for all of those social programs, and only Mike Harris has that plan to keep Ontario on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for starting our program tonight. Our second speaker of the evening, again a candidate in the riding of London-Fanshawe, is from the Freedom Party, Lloyd Walker. Lloyd.
Thank you, Gordon. I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. This is my fourth time running for Freedom Party. I've had the privilege of representing them since, basically since 1985. I've been with the party for 14 years, and I've been part of virtually every campaign that the party has waged. And I'm very proud of this record, and I'm happy to say that I've had that opportunity to offer the voters of London Centre and now London-Fanshawe the option of making a choice that's different from the three old parties. Freedom Party has grown in credibility over the past 15 years. We've had a record of bringing up a number of issues that many of you now are at the forefront, but we were there saying we wanted balanced budgets. We wanted taxpayer protection acts. Even the subject of Sunday shopping, that was part of Freedom Party's platform well before you heard it from the mainstream. We've consistently promoted less government and replaced it with the idea of more personal and individual responsibility. That is in a thumbnail Freedom Party. If you want to compare us to the parties that exist, if you look at the conservative side and you look at the ideas of economic freedom, of individual responsibility, you'll find that that's the freedom we embrace. When you turn towards the left, what you'll find there is the idea of individual choice on social and personal issues. From the left, we took that idea of freedom and melded them together into the Freedom Party of Ontario. The province of Ontario has seen a cycle now of Liberal, NDP, and PC governments. All of them Although they have said that they're going to reduce government or whatever, what they've done is they've increased the amount of government in our lives. I think it's an important opportunity now. You can stand up, you can send a message with your vote for Freedom Party and say, I'm a responsible adult, I can make my decisions, and I will choose to live my life peacefully. Thank you.
And our next candidate speaking now is representing the NDP in the riding of London-Fanshawe. Her name is Irene Mathyssen. Irene.
Thank you and good evening. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to talk with you about the commitment to our communities that I and the new Democratic Party make to you. This election is about our future and the kind of province Ontarians wish to build. In the past 4 years, we have seen the result of the destructive cuts Mike Harris has made to services. These cuts have caused suffering for those in need of medical care, anxiety for parents and students in our schools, and confusion in every part of our community. New Democrats are committed to rebuilding the services people depend upon. We will end the tax cut to the wealthiest Ontarians, individuals with a taxable income over $80,000, and we will reinvest this $1.5 billion back into community services. This funding, which the Conservatives took from health care, education, environmental protection, elderly patients, and impoverished children in London-Fanshawe, must be reinvested where it will do more good for more people. The Liberals have refused to end this harmful tax cut that really only benefits the richest people in Ontario. New Democrats will never support this liberal, conservative tax structure because it has and will perpetuate two-tiered community services. Healthcare, education is an investment in our families and our future. New Democrats like me and Howard Hampton will make that vital reinvestment because we are clearly on the side of working families in London-Fanshawe. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. And now our next candidate is representing the Green Party, again in the riding of London-Fanshawe. And I would remind you that we do have some lines open. Give us a call. 672-1313 is the number. After 2 more speakers, we are going to get your calls on the air. So call now, 672-1313. Again, our next candidate from the Green Party, representing the Green Party in the riding of London-Fanshawe, and her name is Heidi Strasser. Heidi.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. As your Green Party representative, this is my 3rd time running now, and I'm hoping that as the years go by, the Green Party is a little less scary an entity than it might have been for some. The Green Party, as I stand before you, is in over 100 countries around the world. We are part of an international movement which causes us to be very different from the other parties you see before you this evening. We do have members in the government of every country in Europe, but I want to make clear that the Green Party is not a monolith. We do see the importance of local control, local decision-making, and grassroots-based policies rather than the top-down sort of policy-making that you see before you with many of the other parties. I think that the present government has frothed up quite an environment of fear in the last few years. Recently, they've taken, in the last 4 years, to scapegoating specifically the poor and underprivileged for some of the cuts that they've made and given over to the wealthy. The Green Party finds that this is not only unacceptable, but immeasurably hurtful to our future as a country and also to the foundation of our communities. A number of people have expressed to me some hesitation about voting Green as they've wished to not see a certain party get in and are afraid of splitting the vote. I would like to take this opportunity to give you some food for thought that any action based on fear begets a sideways result, and that will equal bad government for you. I wish to encourage you, no matter what your wishes for this province, to vote with your heart and your mind and not just with your pocketbook, and to vote for what you want, not what you don't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. And now our final speaker here to make an opening statement tonight, the candidate for the Tory party in the riding of London-Fanshawe, Peter Mancini. Peter.
Thank you, Harris. Mr. Harris, I'm still a Liberal, though.
It's Gordon, not Mike. It's okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Rogers for providing this opportunity this evening. Also, thank you for tuning into this broadcast. I welcome the opportunity measured against my fellow candidates. Today's London Free Press clearly supports what the Liberals have been saying during this election. People are more concerned about health care and education than they are about tax cuts. Mike Harris just is not ready to care about people. He is more interested in trying to buy votes than he is in buying supplies and services for our hospitals, the sick, our schools, the young people of our city. The true value of a politician, leader, and party is how much they care for the vulnerable of our society. The Harris government has damaged our primary institutions, our health care, and our education systems. Mr. Harris has created an adversarial relationship between his government and health care workers. He has fired nurses and closed hospitals, leaving the sick to linger waiting for treatment either in hospital corridors in London or in the United States. The Harris agenda has eroded confidence in our schools. Harris would have you believe that teachers are not professionals, are not interested in doing their jobs. Well, Harris is wrong, and once again, Harris has done the wrong thing. Ladies and gentlemen, money is important. Fair and equitable taxation is also important, and so is economic growth. But money and economics should not be valued more highly than people. On a day-to-day basis, I work for and represent injured workers in their fight for justice and fairness with the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. And I get results for these people because I dedicate myself to that end, and I will dedicate myself to get results for the people of London-Fanshawe. I will fight to restore our province and its institutions. I will fight to put people first. I welcome your attention and your questions.
Thank you, Peter. My apologies. Peter, of course, is representing the Liberal Party. My mistake, Peter. Thank you. Now, let's go to the phones. Again, we invite you to call. 672-1313 is the number to join us here tonight. We ask you to keep your questions brief. You can direct a question to a particular candidate. That's fine. We will let that candidate respond first, but we will allow each of the candidates to respond to each of the questions posed here tonight, and each one will have 1 minute to give their response. So, let's begin now. Let's go to the phones. We have Ann standing by first. Ann, good evening.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Mancini. As a concerned student entering post-secondary schooling this coming fall, I attended the education debate on Thursday evening, and I was concerned with Mr. Skidmore's response about mandatory teacher testing. He responded with saying that he didn't even know what to test teachers on. How do you plan on identifying the incompetent teachers and weeding them out of the system without teacher testing?
Is this question directed for the Liberal candidate or for the Conservative candidate?
No, for Mr. Mancini, the Liberal candidate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are on record as a party as not accepting the restructuring, the retraining that Mike Harris has requested from our teachers. Essentially the recertification that he has talked about once every 4 years that he will undertake and require teachers to qualify and pass. We will not accept that, and we will not undertake such a program. We believe that teachers are a valued profession. Mr. Harris in the past 4 years has attacked our teachers, and we believe that that has affected the quality of education in this province.
In the interest of continuity, again, I'd like to invite all the candidates to respond to each question, and in the interest of continuity here, I'd like to pass this on now to the Tory candidate in this riding, Frank Mazzilli. Frank?
And thank you for your question. As you know, we've come up with a standard curriculum for all our students and standard testing, just so that we can measure to see how our students are doing compared to others. And if there is a problem, let's identify it, let's deal with it early. We've also introduced teacher testing now, because that is the link that is missing. Certainly with technology changes, we need to find out that our teachers are up to date, and we're asking that they recertify every 3 to 5 years. And if there's a problem, we will get them some help. We know that our teachers work hard and are a dedicated bunch. As a police officer, I have to recertify every year to conduct breathalyzer tests. Lawyers recertify themselves, doctors, mechanics. I certainly don't see any reason why our teachers cannot be tested every 3 to 5 years simply to ensure that their skills are up to date.
Thank you. And now, the Freedom Party's response to the idea of teacher recertification. Lloyd Walker.
Thank you, Gord. Thank you, Ann. With regards to certification, a teacher holds a very, very valuable position. And obviously, they learn things as they go just simply by doing the job, and that should be valued. But just like in many other jobs, and Mr. Mazzilli referred to some of them, it is important that people keep their skills up to date. While I don't necessarily think that testing is the way to go, I think that's a rather cumbersome method of trying to maintain teaching skills. I don't think it would be out of line for someone to call themselves a teacher in this province for them to have to show that they have taken X number of hours of training, or or something along that line, that they've attended seminars in the professional development days. That kind of approach could be used, because I believe for the most part teachers do that, and you would find that most of them, this would be nothing to them because they do it every day of their lives, because they do care about our children. They stay up to date, and I think that's all we have to do, is just make sure that you keep your skills up to date and nobody's ever going to put you through a test.
And now responding on behalf of the NDP party, Irene Mathyssen.
Thank you, Gord. I thank you for this question. I believe this mandatory testing is more about demoralizing the teachers in the province of Ontario than evaluating them. I am a teacher, and every 2 years my department head and vice principal come to see a lesson, to talk to me about my objectives, my plans for the classroom, for my extracurricular activities. All of these things come into play, and all of these things are continually evaluated. I know that teachers are highly qualified professionals who believe profoundly in education and in promoting education among our students. Other professionals are not indeed evaluated in this way, and the professionalism of teachers is such that this browbeating is not going to affect any better effect in the classroom.
Heidi Strasser, does the Green Party have a position on the issue of recertifying teachers?
We absolutely do. The first question I would have regarding this teacher testing is, how do we test anyone for the ability to teach? Many of the things that are most important to instill in our students are not things for which we can test with little bubbles that we can color in. I'm talking about things like cooperation, communication, mutability, the ability for children to think for themselves. These are things that can be instilled in a child. They cannot be taught to him or her. The Green Party would like to see teachers be more responsible to their communities by putting the decision-making in the hands of the local community, so that the local needs and wants are what is being addressed within the teaching system, and not some top-down system for standardized curriculum. A standardized curriculum, I would like to point out, does not meet the needs of students. 12 major learning models we know exist already. Every child is different, and every child's going to need individual attention.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention. And now we are going to move on to our next caller. Anthony, good evening. Go right ahead.
Yes. Hi, Gord. Hi, candidates. My question is about the environment. My daughter has severe asthma, and I was horrified last night while I was watching the news to learn that yesterday was the earliest day in the history of Canada and Ontario where the Environment Canada issued a smog alert warning, and my daughter had a fitful sleep. She was up every half hour. Now, I know what the Conservatives have done, because Mike Harris opened Ontario for business by relaxing environmental laws and firing 700 environmental protection officers. So there's no enforcement, and all these companies are allowed to poison our environment while they're reaping in the benefits.
Your question, Anthony?
I want to know what the parties are going to do about cleaning up our environment. Like, it's horrendous that people are getting poisoned daily. We have record numbers of kids and older persons who are dying because of poisoned air. And I want to know what the parties are going to do about it.
Okay. Any particular candidate you'd like to address this first?
No, and Paul can answer.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll pass it on to Heidi Strasser then for the Green Party. Heidi?
Okay. Yes, I actually was wanting to bring up that exact issue earlier. Strangely, it's very close to my heart. Mike Harris has looked like he was doing something for the environment, and something that's been promoted very widely has been Ontario's Drive Clean program. I think that's a great idea, but we need to look at the public subsidies which each of us pays to the tune of $2,000 per car per year through our public taxes for each car that's on the road. We also have to replace 7 million cars, I believe it is, every 10 years. And obviously there has to be a better way of going about transporting ourselves. Obviously the Green Party would like to see more rapid transportation, use of public transportation, and by increasing taxes on pollution, we would encourage people to find alternate means of transportation.
And now responding for the NDP party, Irene Mathyssen.
Thank you very much for your question, Anthony. The NDP is determined to clean up our environment here in Ontario. I was the parliamentary assistant to Ruth Greer and Bud Wildman under the NDP government, and I can tell you that we made real strides in that time. Currently, the NDP is determined to work toward the goals of the Ontario Campaign for Clean Air by developing a strategy to implement and enforce their recommendations in regard to the elimination and reduction of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide. We also want to hire back environmental officers, the ones that Mike Harris fired, because it's essential that they be in the community making the assessments, finding people who are polluting our environment and putting us back on track to a better environment. And it's not just a health issue, although health is essential in terms of clean air. It's also a matter of being smart about our environment.
Thank you, Irene. Moving on now to the Freedom Party once again with Lloyd Walker. Lloyd.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. I'm glad you brought this up because I got the London Free Press on Saturday morning and to my horror discovered that Freedom Party's platform supposedly said that we would abolish all fines for polluters. I want to assure everyone that nothing could be further from the truth. Freedom Party believes very strongly in private property rights, and as such, what we think has to be done is that those who pollute have to be held completely accountable for what they do. They have to be responsible for cleaning up the mess. They have to be responsible for the damage they have done to other people. They have to pay the court costs and the costs of the mechanisms necessary to bring them to justice. And then, once you're at that 0 point, it's then that you can actually worry about fines. Quite frankly, the idea of fining people right now amounts to charge someone $10,000 a fine. It's $100,000 to clean up. You've just put the taxpayers on the hook for $90,000, and that's wrong. Accountability is the key issue here. Thank you.
And now responding on behalf of the Conservative Party, Frank Mazzilli. Frank.
Anthony, thank you for the question. As you know, just a short time ago, Premier Harris announced the Lands for Life, where 12% of the province was designated as parkland. This will preserve the environment for a long time to come. And we've also canceled the spring bear hunt, where young bears were being slaughtered in the spring. So we are taking the necessary steps, making the necessary decisions, but you need strong leadership to do that.
Okay, thank you. And for the Liberal Party, once again, Peter Mancini.
Thank you. Air pollution kills over 2,000 Ontarians a year. This is not just about protecting the environment. This is about protecting the health of every Ontarian. Mike Harris likes to say that promises made, promises kept. Well, let me tell you, he promised not to cut a cent from the environmental ministry. In fact, he cut the budget by 45%, and he fired 714 employees. What have we had as a result of those cuts? We've had prosecutors, full-time prosecutors cut. That means prosecutions have been cut by nearly 60%. Also, the number of charges to these polluters have dropped by 25%. Mike Harris can't be trusted to protect our environment any more than he can be trusted to protect our health care. Clearly, a liberal government will stand up to polluters. If they break the law, we will catch them. And when we do, we will prosecute them. We will start by hiring 100 new environmental officers and prosecutors to do the job.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Now, we'll take another call here. We have to take a break in just a moment, but I'd invite this caller to pose the question, and then we'll just take a little break, and we'll have the candidates respond. A reminder that you are watching the candidates from the riding of London-Fanshawe here on Rogers Community TV, and tonight at 9 p.m., and if you're watching this live, this is Monday night, the 31st of May, and at 9 p.m. tonight, we'll have the candidates here from the riding of Elgin, Middlesex, London to answer your questions as well. Our next caller now to pose a question before we go to the break is Joan. Good evening, Joan.
My question is for Peter Mancini. I'd like to know what his position is on the equitable opportunity for certified general accountants to be licensed as public accountants in Ontario, as they have that right in the majority of the rest of Canada.
Okay, let's get this question straight, because we're going to take a break here, and I may forget it before we come back. It's a fairly detailed question. Could you pose it again? Frank, or Peter is writing this down here feverishly, so could you pose that question one more time to get the detail right?
What is Peter's position on the equitable opportunity for certified general accountants to be licensed in as public accountants in the province of Ontario?
Okay, first time I've heard that question in this campaign, Joan. Thank you very much for the call. We are going to take a short break now, momentarily, and we'll come back with the responses to that question from these candidates. And if you have a question you'd like to pose, now is a good time to give us a call, and we'll line you up here and get in line, and we'll get you on the agenda here tonight. 672-1313 is the number to call. That's 672-1313. Please make the question brief if you can. We want to get as many calls on as we can, possibly in the last half hour of this program. Stay with us here on Rogers Community TV. We'll be right back with these candidates from the riding of London-Fanshawe right after this. Well, we're back. We have the candidates from London-Fanshawe here joining us this evening on Rogers Community TV, inviting your questions. The number to call, 672-1313, 672-1313. Before the break, we had a caller by the name of Joan who asked a question of the Liberal candidate here, Peter Mancini, and the question was about certifying CGAs, Certified General Accountants, in the same way as Chartered Accountants. And I'll let Peter respond to that question first, and then we'll let all the other candidates respond to that question as well. Peter Mancini for the Liberals. Peter.
Thank you. Unquestionably, there is an inequity with Certified General Accountants here in Ontario as they are in other provinces. In other provinces, Certified General Accountants can perform audits. In point of fact, the Auditor General of Canada can audit the books of the Ministry of Finance, but if he were to come into the province of Ontario, he would not be able to audit the books of a corner store. And that's an inequity, I believe, that the Liberal Party will undertake to rectify, and we will give Certified General Accountants in this province the same abilities and opportunity and power that they have in other provinces. Thank you.
And thank you. And now Heidi Strasser for the Green Party.
I believe that this is another situation in which grassroots decision-making could really play an important role, whether it be accountants or members of any other profession within Ontario, for them to be able to make recommendations to the government directly, be it by vote or by a meeting of some description. Then certainly decisions would be based in the opinions of those who know the issues and not those from whom opinions may be gotten, but not necessarily valid ones. I certainly see if this is an inequity, it should be addressed within Ontario. I don't know how many people it would actually affect in this riding or in Ontario in general, but I certainly think it does need to be looked at.
And now for the NDP party, Irene Mathyssen.
Thank you, Joan. I think there certainly should be equitable opportunity for CGAs, and they should indeed be licensed. They have very similar training and qualifications as chartered accountants, and I believe would provide consumers with more choice and very good services. Clearly, Ontario is behind the other provinces, and we do indeed need to get in line.
And now for the Freedom Party, Lloyd Walker.
Thanks again, Joan. This, again, I have to echo what Peter and Irene have said, is that there's no question that they are certainly inequitably treated compared to in other provinces. There's no doubt that that has to be remedied. It's almost endemic in a lot of job situations. There are a number of areas in the province where there are people in positions who have all the skills necessary but are just not recognized properly and allowed to do it. And that whole area has to be looked at. But the CGA situation is one that's glaringly obvious.
And now for the Conservative Party in the riding of London-Fanshawe, Frank Mazzilli. Frank.
Joan, as you know, we've worked hard to reduce government bureaucracy. It occurs not only in your profession, but amongst tradespeople crossing the border with Quebec, and Premier Harris has moved on that situation. The bureaucracy within the ministries have been created over 30 years, and we're working hard to remove those barriers.
And we go back to the phones now for our next caller of the evening, and it's Ralph. Good evening, Ralph. You're with the candidates from London-Fanshawe. Go right ahead.
Yes, I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Mancini. The other night, a couple of my fellow apartment dwellers were talking, and they said that their vote was going to the NDP. I asked them what made them make this decision. And their answer was that an NDP worker had told them that Mr. Hampton said he would reinstate rent controls if elected. Now, I'm certain that I heard Mr. McGuinty at the beginning of the campaign state that he would replace the Ontario Housing Rental Tribunal with a new Rental Control Act. We would like to know who is right here, and I know you're a man of integrity, and so are the other people, but I would like to know who did make this statement and who would reinstate the rent controls.
Very good question, Ralph. Thanks for bringing that up, and we'll let all the candidates respond in their party's position on the issue of rent controls. Thanks, Ralph. Peter Mancini first for the Liberals.
Well, thank you for the question. I am personally on record as stating that we will reintroduce real rent controls in this province. In point of fact, our leader, Dalton McGuinty, has stated on more than one occasion that he will, in fact, if he is the premier of this province, reintroduce real rent controls. In point of fact, Ralph, it's in our 2020 platform that rent controls will be introduced by the new Ministry of Housing as quickly as we possibly can. As you know, rent controls came into this province in 1975. When Mr. Peterson formed the government, we introduced a new form of rent controls that limited the amount of rent increase to inflation or below. And we will introduce similar legislation once we're given the opportunity to do so, and thank you for the question.
And let's pass the question on now to the Tory candidate in this riding, and that is Frank Mazzilli. Frank?
Ralph, thank you. Just to correct Peter, the Bill Davis government came up with rent control, and there continues to be rent control today. A landlord cannot raise the rent per year above the legal limit. However, on top of that, Ralph, if you could spread the word to some of the other apartment dwellers, we're going to reduce taxes, residential taxes, by 20%. And this goes for tenants. Landlords will be mandated to return that money to tenants. And that is retroactive to January of 1999. So you can look forward to a refund.
Thank you. And now for the NDP, Irene Mathyssen.
Thank you very much, Ralph. There is some confusion, I think. There has been rent control in Ontario for a while, but one of the realities about the Liberal RRA, the 1986 bill, was that it was not effective. Landlords could do luxury renovations to the lobby and then pass on very, very excessive increases to their tenants, 20, 30, 40%. So in 1992, we came up with a rent control bill that had real teeth and was truly effective. And landlords were restricted in terms of the amount of increase that they could charge. They still had enough money for comfortable profit and enough money in order to do repairs, but they weren't permitted to gouge renters. The Tories have partially deregulated that, and what it means is that students and people who move are at a terrible disadvantage. They pay what the market will bear, and that's not acceptable. We'll bring back real rent control.
And now for the Freedom Party on this issue, Lloyd Walker.
Thank you very much. Rent controls, just like our position on the environment, our position is based on private property rights. There's no question that when someone owns a building, it is their decision what they decide to charge for rents. If they charge far too high an amount, their buildings will be empty. If you force them to accept less than an acceptable return, you end up with the situation where no one puts money into housing anymore. You end up with situations where we have all kinds of complaints about we don't have enough housing for people. We do not need rent controls because they will cause a housing crisis, and there's no question that rent controls are a violation of the property rights of anyone that owns a building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the next candidate to respond to this question from the Green Party, Heidi Strasser.
I have to disagree with Mr. Walker regarding that rents will be controlled by what the market will bear. I don't think we need to look any farther than our local multiple constabulary of Toronto, in which there are many, a very low vacancy rate, very, very high rents, and tens of thousands of people literally living on the streets or in equally bad conditions. The Green Party believes that regardless of his or her income, every human being has the right to decent housing. And for that reason, we would like to see more activity on the part of the government in terms of allowing people to take, again, their communities into their own hands, maybe rebuild older structures or build new buildings in which communities can be founded and which are affordable with some help from the government.
Thank you. And now to our next caller of the evening, back to the phones here with Joe standing by. Joe, good evening.
Good evening, Gord. Just the most important, two most important subjects here today, health and education. Now, I do not, this is for the Tory candidate mainly, I do not see the necessity, sir, for your government to go into about $25 billion in debt. I call it deficit financing, just to give some tax relief to people who are already earning a lot of money.
Okay.
To
Joe,
me, that is extremely stupid. And then
your question, please, Joe.
Huh?
Your question,
the question,
please.
Why? Why would they do that? And the other thing is about the closing of hospitals. Mike Harris said he was not going to close any hospitals. He ended up closing 45, causing thousands and thousands of people to lose their homes because they couldn't pay their mortgages and to get into debt.
Joe, we just want the question, okay? So the two questions. One, why the tax cut? And two, on the issue of the closing of hospitals. And we'll let Frank Mazzilli for the Tories respond first, and then again let all the candidates respond to both these issues, probably at 30 seconds each, candidates, if you can. Go right ahead, Frank.
Joe, as to the tax cut, it's that tax cut that created more government revenue. In the past, what we saw was increased taxes, jobs leaving the country, and actually less government revenue. Through strong leadership, Premier Harris reduced the tax load by 30%. 2/3 of that tax decrease went to low-income earners and middle-income earners, and that stimulated the economy. So the economy, the government took in $6 billion more. So that was necessary to create the 540,000 new jobs, and it was necessary to create those jobs so that we could increase funding for health care when the federal Liberals slashed transfer payments by $3 billion. So those were all deliberate, tough, and necessary choices that were made by the Premier of this province.
Okay, thank you very much. And now let's go this way. We'll take Lloyd Walker next from the Freedom Party. Lloyd.
Thank you very much. I think it's a good question, and it's a very valid one to ask why tax cuts. There are several reasons why to. The first is that the level of taxes you pay are certainly a measure of the number of choices that are made for you by the government rather than you making them yourself. It's very important that you be able to direct the money to where you think it should go rather than letting the government do it because they only pick one thing. The other reason is that it does stimulate the economy when you reduce taxes. You think back to the 80s when we had a recession going, the government of the day took sales tax off of a number of items simply because they wanted to stimulate that part of the economy. Well, the fact is that when they put the taxes back on, they damaged that part of the economy, and they never seem to mention that. We have to have the tax cuts in order to stimulate the economy. With regards to hospital closures, I don't believe hospitals should be closed, but the simple thing is I don't believe that the government should be running the hospitals. The closures are extremely political decisions, not medical ones, and we need medical people in charge of our healthcare system.
Okay, and now responding for the NDP on these two issues, Irene Mathyssen.
Thank you very much, Joe, for the question. I think that to say that Mike Harris has created a boom in this economy is quite simplistic. Economists are very clear that we are the beneficiaries of a booming American economy. Even the Globe and Mail report on business was less enthralled with the Harris actions than with the fact that it's the American economy that's pushed us along. These tax cuts amount to $1.5 billion a year. They go to the top 6% of Ontario's taxpayers, the wealthiest people in this province. And that $1.5 billion came right out of health care, came right out of education. So elderly people, sick people, vulnerable people, students, parents, and teachers are paying for this tax cut so that the wealthy can have more and the rest of us have less. And it's wrong.
And now responding for the Green Party on these issues of tax cuts and also hospital closures, Heidi Strasser. Heidi.
I'd like to take this opportunity to point out that the Green Party feels in general that government does not need to cost as much as it does, that by putting decision-making back into the hands of the local communities, whether we meet in a town hall situation, vote by phone, or any other option which we may find amicable, we can make decisions for ourselves. It is we who should make the decisions about what goes on around us. Mr. Harris's alleged tax cuts to low-income individuals, I personally can't figure out at all. I think my tax cut was about $200 a year, and this doesn't even even out the fact that I now pay a $25 a month surcharge because my house has direct access to the sewer. That privilege cost me $300 a year, so it doesn't work out for me. As for hospitals, again, put decisions in the hands of people who know what kinds of decisions to make and what the ramifications will be, not politicians.
And a response now from the Liberal candidate, Peter Mancini.
Thank you, Joe. You remember as clearly as I do 4 years ago when Mike Harris stood in front of a camera, like the one I'm standing in front of now, and promised the people of Ontario that he would not close hospital. Well, You know as well as I do, Joe, that his Health Services Restructuring Committee has recommended the closure of 45 hospitals in this province. And a Liberal government will review each and every closing. We have promised to reopen Women's College Hospital and Mount Fortin Hospital in Ottawa. As well, the tax cuts that the Tories speak about has increased our debt by $24 billion. Not since the Bob Rae government have we seen a debt rise as quickly as this one. Bob Rae, as you remember, in his 5 years as Premier of this province, increased the debt by $42 billion. In point of fact, today we hear the NDP party talk taxing the rich. They did the same thing in 1990. And what did they do? They taxed the middle class. The Bob Rae government, in fact, closed 8,000 hospital beds and cut the health budget by $500,000.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Now we're going to go to one more call here, and we're going to ask the candidates this time for 30-second responses. We're getting tighter and tighter as time goes on here. But we'll take the next call, and I believe we have Rochelle standing by. Good evening, Rochelle. Go right ahead. Sorry, it's Joe? It's Joe. Sorry, Joe, go ahead. Hello, Joe. On the phone lines. Joe, are you there? Okay.
Hello?
Is Rochelle there? Good evening, Rochelle.
Good evening.
Yes, go right ahead, Rochelle. We'll get you in. Your question for the candidates. Go right ahead.
My question is, since Mike Harris came into power, he cut the programs to people with disabilities, and I'm kind of wondering what the new people in power will do to get the services back online, because we're kind of in the middle between welfare and disability pension here, and we just want to get our life on the line where we can find a job and keep it and have a program where we fit in between somewhere so we can get off the system.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to have to move on because time is going, and I'm going to ask the Freedom Party candidate to start us off this time, Lloyd Walker.
Okay, it's an interesting issue that people lump welfare and disability together. I find that first is a problem, simply because they are so demonstrably different. Hopefully anyone that is on welfare is still willing and able and possibly will get back to work. People with disabilities are in a special situation, and I do think that in that area there is a role for government to play in helping those who can't help themselves.
Okay, thank you very much. And now a response to that from Heidi Strasser with the Green Party. Heidi?
The Green Party would like to reduce government, well, having too many numbers of us, essentially. As far as welfare, the disability income, mother's allowance, what the Green Party would like to see is a single structure, that being called guaranteed income supplement. We do have something like it in place for people who are past retirement age here in Canada, but we believe it would be much more equitable if every human being had a right to X number of dollars. He or she may earn a little less or a little more.
Thank you, Heidi. And now to the Tory candidate, Frank Mazzilli. Frank.
Rochelle, thank you. When we took over 4 years ago, Premier Harris found that people on disability were lumped into the welfare rolls. The first thing that was done by the Community and Social Services Minister was the Ontario Disability Support Plan was put in place, and people on disabilities no longer on the general welfare rolls. And the support plan is 47% more generous than other provinces with support in place for work programs.
I sort of have to keep moving it on, but time is going by. We want to get the Liberal candidate's response to this now. Peter Mancini. Peter.
Thank you. I can tell you that the Harris's government record on disabled issues is fraught with cuts and broken promises. I deal with disabled issues and injured workers every single day of my life, and I can tell you that the cuts that have been made to injured workers and disability payments, I think, is essentially atrocious. We in the Liberal government will begin reviewing immediately the Ontarians for Disabilities Act. There are 11 principles outlined with by the Ontarians with Disabilities Act Committee, and we will undertake immediately to act on those.
Thank you, Peter. And now our final response here from the NDP party, Irene Mathyssen.
The Harris Tories introduced an Ontario Disabilities Act that is a sham. New Democrats will bring back one that has real teeth and real significance. And I think we have to remember that people need to have dignity, and we can provide programs so that they have access to employment. We can provide safe, affordable co-op and nonprofit housing so they have the benefit of a home where they can organize their lives and pursue employment. Childcare so they can go after training and a job. job and transit, because ultimately people who have disabilities need independence, and we can provide the kind of community services that give that independence.
That ends the phone-in portion of this program tonight. If you're frustrated and couldn't get through the lines, remember we'll be back here at 9 o'clock tonight with the candidates from Elgin, Middlesex, London, and you can pose your questions to those candidates at that time. If you have questions about party issues, we'll take those questions at that time beginning at 9 tonight. Now, without further ado, let's move on to the final part of the program, which is 2-minute closing remarks from each of the candidates we have here. And we're doing this in the reverse order to which we began the program tonight, and that means our first speaker is from the Liberal Party of Ontario, Peter Mancini.
Thank you. Thursday is important, ladies and gentlemen. This evening you again had the opportunity to see how ill-equipped the Conservatives are to focus on what really matters, people. The Conservative candidate's glib and shallow answers indicate that though he may be well-intentioned, he, like Mike Harris, doesn't understand the magnitude of the problems created by the Harris government. Our health care and education systems are in chaos, and you want that changed for the better. Thursday's vote is an historic one for London-Fanshawe. The person you choose will be the first MPP in the new provincial riding. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a right to expect excellence in your elected officials. London-Fanshawe needs strength and effectiveness in its MPP. A wrong choice in this election could mean 4 more years of Harris. Vote for me, Peter Mancini, and send Harris back where he really belongs, back to private life. Thank you.
And now, final comments from the candidate for the Green Party in the riding of London-Fanshawe, Heidi Strasser.
Thank you, Gord. The Greens, I feel, are often looked upon as a one-cause pony. I want to point out that we do need to understand the true definition of environment extends to that of our judicial, political, and economic environments, and that these can affect us just as profoundly as the quality of our air and water. The Greens propose some significantly different means of doing things. First and foremost, we propose that the cost of government does not need to be reduced by cutbacks in essential services such as health, welfare, education, but rather by the means by which we govern ourselves. The Greens propose that putting decision-making in the hands of the people by use of local meetings and referenda is the way to go. By keeping government locally based and locally responsible, we can make it smaller, better, and at much lower overall cost. Thank you.
And now her final comments representing the NDP party in the riding of London-Fanshawe, Irene Mathyssen.
Thank you. We've heard a great deal this evening about more Harris tax cuts, and we've also heard that the Liberals will not end the unfair tax imbalance that really only benefits the wealthiest among us. In fact, Dalton McGuinty signed a pledge that he would not roll back the tax cuts to the rich, despite the fact that in the past 4 years, tax cuts have led to closed hospital beds, laid off nurses and hospital staff, and endangered patient care. These cuts have forced educators to take to the streets to warn parents and students that Mike Harris has created an educational deficit in this province and has made Ontario the only province where child poverty increased. There are 32,000 more impoverished children in Ontario since 1995. 17,000 of them live in London. The Mike Harris tax cut is a national disgrace, and the Liberals have said they will not end that tax cut that's caused so much pain and hardship and disparity. We have a tremendous opportunity to build a province where there is dependable, publicly supported health care, education, and strong community services. Only New Democrats will end the tax cut to the wealthy and rebuild our communities. And I respectfully ask for your vote for Irene Mathyssen, the NDP, on June the 3rd.
Thank you. And now final comments for this evening from the Freedom Party candidate in this riding, Lloyd Walker. Lloyd.
Thank you, Gord. Well, you've heard what all the parties stand for at this point, and you have a very, very important choice to make come June 3rd. You have the choice to vote against, where you just decide what party you like the least, I guess. You have the chance to vote strategically, which is voting against but letting someone else make the decision as to who you vote for. Or you have the option of voting for. There's no question that voting for is the superior idea. When you vote against, look what it can get you. You could have someone in Queen's Park who claims that your vote means support for their mandate. You could have Dalton McGuinty saying, that he has the mandate to implement the 2020 plan, when indeed all he has is the mandate not to be Mike Harris. Don't play games with your vote. Look at all the parties, take a serious look at what you believe in, look at their platforms, and ask yourself, what do I see as the message that I want to send to the people who govern this province? What do I want to say to them about what I want for the future? If you decide that you want the government to run things, you have an even tougher decision. You have 5 parties and platforms to sort through in London-Fanshawe. If, however, you decide that you would like to see less government, if you believe that you would like to be treated like an adult, to have someone respect your decisions, to allow you to make your choices and take responsibility for them, then there's only one party, there's only one platform. You should have your choice in where your health care dollars go. You should be able to use a voucher to direct your taxes to the education system of your choice. You should pay taxes for services rendered, not pay taxes to a government that will make all its decisions for you and send the money wherever they want. On June 3rd, if you want to be treated as an adult, you have one choice. That's Lloyd Walker in London-Fanshawe. Thank you.
And now the Tory candidate in this riding, Frank Mazzilli.
Thank you, Gord. June the 3rd will be an important day. What we've heard from Irene and Howard is tax increases. They have been honest, and we like that. We don't agree. What we've heard from Dalton McGuinty is a Harris bashing with no alternative plans. $6 billion in his plan that are unaccounted for in costs. Our plan, the blueprint, is about growth. By cutting taxes, we will create 825,000 new jobs, allow more investment, a 20% increase into our health care system for our aging population. Only through a strong economy can we keep the programs going that we need most. If you believe in growth, on Thursday, June 3rd, I ask for your support.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to ask the control room, this is the time for another question, control room, or no? We're all up. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you very much. The candidates didn't use all the time. I thought we had some time left for another question. But thank you again for watching this program here tonight on Rogers Community TV. And thank you to all the candidates who've come out tonight and shared their thoughts and their party's opinions on the major issues of the day. In this election coming up on Thursday. Once again, a reminder, coming up at 9 tonight, we will be back here in this studio to bring you the candidates from the riding of Elgin, Middlesex, London. And we will again be inviting your phone calls for those candidates. That's again tonight starting at 9. Now, if you've missed these programs, maybe you're interested in London North Centre or the riding of London West, a reminder that on Wednesday evening, starting at 7 p.m., we're going to rebroadcast the entire 4 set of programs that we have done Friday night and this evening. So again, that's at 7 p.m., starting at 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. First, the riding of London North Centre, followed at 8 p.m. by the riding of London West, followed at 9 p.m. by a rebroadcast of this program you're watching right now, the riding of London-Fanshawe, and then in the final hour on Wednesday evening, the rebroadcast of the candidates from the riding of Elgin, Middlesex, London. And then, don't forget, on Thursday evening, after all is said and done, after you have cast your ballots, find out who will be the representatives from these 4 area ridings and who will form the government of Ontario for the next 4 to 5 years. We will be here on Rogers Community TV, and along with CFPL Radio 98, we'll be doing a simulcast presentation, a special simulcast broadcast on both radio and television that night to bring you the local results fast and first. Stay with us for that. Until 9 o'clock, have a good evening. I'm Gord Harris.